Hello, everyone, and welcome to our mPower Hour. I'm Elizabeth, and I am here today with an incredible group of women from the RF Ideas Women's Employee Resource Group, Women Making Waves. I'm here with Jennifer Bauer, Shelley Alice, Emily Jackson, Sarah King, Megan Forsberg, and Kelsey O'Berry. These women are all here because they share a common goal to empower women in the workplace. And whether you're just starting out, coming back from a career pause, or looking to advance in your career, today we are going to share valuable advice and actionable steps to help you navigate your career journey, no matter what phase you're in. A few housekeeping notes before we dive in. This session is saved here on LinkedIn and on YouTube, so you can rewatch it at any time. And we will have time for audience questions at the end of the session. So add anything that you may have for these incredible women into the comment section, and we'll try to get to all of them at the end. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here today. Before we kind of dive right into our conversation, I'd like to take some time to introduce you all. And let's say if you're an early bird or a night owl, and like what you're reading or what you're watching. Jennifer, let's start with you.
Hello, everyone. Jennifer Bauer. I'm the Director of Human Capital here at RF Ideas. I am 100% an early bird, and current read is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Hi, I'm Shelley Alice. I'm the Vice President of Finance at RF Ideas. I, additionally to Jen, am 100% an early bird, and I'm currently reading Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Jackson. I'm the Channel Manager for RF Ideas. I'm an early bird once I have at least one cup of coffee. And right now I'm reading James by Percival Everett, which is a modern day retelling of Huckleberry Finn.
Oh, cool. Hi, I'm Sarah King. I am a pre-sales engineer at RF Ideas. I used to be a night owl, but after having children, I am forced to be an early bird. And right now, I'm not really reading or watching a show, but I've been hooked on this podcast called Crime Junkies.
Hi, and I'm Megan Forsberg, Marketing Manager. I am also an early bird thanks to my 10-month-old son, and I am currently binging the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders documentary.
And I'm Kelsey O'Berry. I'm a content writer here at RF Ideas, and I am most definitely a night owl, and I'm usually staying up reading. And the book I'm currently reading is This Summer It Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. So closing out the summer with that read.
And then have you watched the show, or are you going to watch the show next? Or is there a show? Am I thinking it's a different show?
I think you're thinking of a different show, but
I'm thinking of The Summer I Turned Pretty.
Which is a great
anyway, I wrote down all of these books. So thank you all for, and your podcast. Thank you all for sharing. It's always nice to kind of see what everybody else is reading and get some inspiration and ideas. So for those in the audience that don't know, Megan, can you tell us more about RF Ideas and its mission and the value statement that withholds the culture?
Of course. So a little bit about RF Ideas. Our mission is to empower organizations with more secure, efficient, and compliant authentication solutions by removing the headaches of passwords in everyday life. So you can do this, again, with your badge, you've likely kind of engaged in the experience of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And we call that technology Wave ID. So to put it into layman's terms, if you've ever been at the doctor's office, you've seen your nurse badge into her Epic, or if you've been in a parking garage and you used your badge to get through that parking gate, or if you've ever used your badge to tap into release documents from a printer. So that's really kind of the Wave ID technology in action. And we've been around for about 30 years in business, enabling both Fortune 500 to SMBs to really, at the root of it, mitigate cyber security threats by, again, making sure that we're keeping everything as secure as possible for authentication. And how that kind of translates into really, our culture and what we do. We're very customer centric. We're known for really, be embedding ourselves into our customers' business, helping solve their pain points, their challenges, And that really starts to kind of see itself through who we are, who are our values. We all really strive towards that shared goal. And that really helps us to bring out that culture of integrity, agility, and teamwork.
Thank you so much. Your passion for RF ideas really shines through even when you're giving that little word. So thank you for saying it. And before we get into kind of the meat of the event, Jennifer, can you talk to us about the Women Making Waves ERG?
Absolutely. So the mission of Women Making Waves and this ERG specifically is to build an inclusive network where women are empowered to grow professionally and personally through a collaborative community of mentorship, service, and support that has an impact on business results. So simply put, honestly, this group is just looking to move the needle, both for themselves and for other women. So in fact, this very LinkedIn Live is one such way in which we do that. I am so very proud of this group and all that they've accomplished thus far. They're ambitious, they're kind, they offer support both externally and to one another. We're really honored to be here today with all of you in this virtual audience, and we're looking forward to sharing insights, tips, and actionable steps surrounding career growth. So thanks for having us, Elizabeth.
Well, what amazing synergy between RF Ideas and this Women's ERG and the Mom Project. Our goals are so aligned. So we're so happy to have you and dive into some really, actionable steps that we can take today. Well, we'll just dive right in. So, Sarah, can you talk to us about how important networking has been in your career and what strategies do you use to build and maintain those professional relationships?
Sure. Networking has been extremely important in my career. It's helped me with career advancement, job searches, and just overall growth as a person. Networking's helped me with my skill development and it's helped me build a good support system, no matter where I've gone with my career. It's always good to engage with others to learn new skills and to get other perspectives. As far as like maintaining those relationships, social media has been super easy to maintain relationships with people I've met along the path of my career, from military to college friends to coworkers, past or present. LinkedIn's been a great resource to see opportunities and new career trends that are happening. Building trust with my contacts have been very imperative in progressing my career. I think of networking as a two-way street, not just of what I can get out of it, but how I can help somebody else as well. But most importantly, I think it's just really important to be authentic and to build genuine relationships and then try to surround yourself with people who you want to be like and who will help push you forward.
Such a wonderful answer. We talk a lot about networking, especially via LinkedIn. And I think to anyone watching today, feel free. We'll pop our LinkedIns into the chat. So connect with any of us. Like we're more than happy to chat and open it up for, a coffee talk or whatever, because I think the more we connect and foster these relationships, the better we will all be advocating for each other. I want to also talk a little bit about mentorship. Shelley, talk to us about the mentors that you've had throughout your career and how did they influence your journey and how can others find and benefit from mentorship?
Yeah. Mentorship has been one of the most impactful experiences in both my personal and professional development. The impact of the incredible mentors I've had in my life cannot be overstated. They've been instrumental in helping me realize my full potential. They challenged me, guided me through tough situations and decisions. They supported me in opening doors I might not have actually approached or had the courage to do so on my own. Their wisdom has been and actually continues to be invaluable, helping me navigate complexities with confidence and clarity. What stood out to me the most as well with these mentors is that they led by example. They not only offered me advice, but they exemplified how they navigate these situations with grace and integrity. Their leadership styles have influenced me, teaching me how to lead with authenticity and purpose. Mentorship is actually not about learning technical skills, but rather gaining perspective, building confidence, and expanding your vision of what's possible. It's a relationship that goes beyond professional, fostering personal growth and resilience as well. For any of you early in your career, contemplating transition, or well-established in your field, seeking out mentorship can be transformative. Finding the right mentor whose experiences and insights align with your aspirations can help you see the bigger picture, avoid pitfalls, and actually accelerate your growth. Additionally, I'd like to add that mentorship is not only about being a mentee, but also being a mentor. It's a chance to give back, share what you've learned, and continue to learn through others. So I strongly encourage everyone, regardless of where you are in your journey, to seek out mentorship. It can really make a difference in realizing your full potential.
Thank you. Mentorship is so important also here at the Mom Project. And we do have a mentorship program called Rally, which just closes applications, but do keep your eye out for future because it is so important to us and something that our community really loves is fostering those authentic relationships that really help grow your professional and, Shelley, as you mentioned, your personal growth as well.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take some time also to talk about career transitions. A lot of the moms in our community are coming back from a career pause or reevaluating what they want out of their jobs. Emily, can you share an experience where you made a significant career transition and talk to us about the steps that you took to ensure its success?
Yeah, so I actually was in the fitness industry before getting into the technology industry. So when you kind of look at that, you think, oh my gosh, that's completely different. Like, how would you even think you could make that transition? But what I did when I was first looking to see, I knew I wanted to kind of do something else besides the fitness world and looking to see where I wanted to go. I did a lot of research based on my transferable skills. So I made a list of all the skills that I most commonly used in the fitness industry and how those might transfer over to something like a sales role that I was interested in. So things like customer service, obviously that's transferable. Things like project management and public speaking that I was doing in kind of the fitness industry, how would that transfer over to the sales or technology industry? So kind of doing the research about the role that you want to do and how those transferable skills that you had from previous roles can then transition over. And then I would say once you do find what role you want to be in, once you kind of get started into that role, some things that you can do to kind of ease that transition are immediately introduce yourself to as many people as you possibly can. One, you could do LinkedIn allies. Another, you could do in that new role, you could reach out to everyone that you're working with and just introduce yourself, build your allies early so that then you can go back to them and ask questions and you can ask for, detailed conversations of, hey, how does this work in this organization and so on and so forth. So you can make that transition a little bit easier for you. Again, kind of going along with that, don't be afraid to ask questions to people that you're working with or your LinkedIn connections about how they made that transition. People are usually, you'll find, willing to help others and people enjoy doing that. So just don't be afraid to ask those questions. We've all been in a new situation before, so it's okay to reach out.
I love that. Such amazing. I like talking about that career pivot because I think that's the first thing that you need to do is really identify those soft skills or those transferable skills and then figure out really how they speak to your experience on a resume. And I love the pivot from fitness to sales. It also really kind of makes sense too when you think about it. You're like, you can see the similarities. And I'm sure you were very vibrant in the fitness world and very vibrant in the sales world as well. One thing that I'm thinking about is the Mom Project has for anyone in the audience watching, we have a skills identification exercise that is just a worksheet that might help hone in on what those soft skills could be and what we could be talking about. So we'll pop that in the chat. And then LinkedIn posted something really interesting today about how making sure that these transferable skills are really highlighted on your profile so that recruiters can reach out. So really thinking about those transferable skills, project management, communication, negotiating, as a mom or as someone trying to make a transition, we do so many things in our daily life that transition to these soft skills. So know that. And Emily's story is certainly a testament to that. So, Megan, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about resumes. What are the key elements that you believe make a resume stand out for employers? And share with us some tips that you might have on how to effectively highlight skills and experiences.
Sure thing. So when thinking through this, I came up with 3 different kind of considerations as you're looking to really have your resume stand out. The first is keep it engaging. When reviewing a slew of resumes, it's really the ones that have the energy and the personality that stand out. So one way to do this is share a short bio of who you are, what you could bring to that role, so that it isn't static, and we already start to get a sense of who you are and you know your voice in your resume. And then secondly, don't just list out bullets of your past job description, and certainly don't just list out bullets from the job description that you're applying for. Rather, tell the potential employer how you took responsibility in your previous role. Action or active voice is a great way to do that. So moving from managing to something like spearheaded, orchestrated, developed, it starts to show more of that energy that you might have put into your past role. The second is keep it current. I had to do even myself a little bit of self-reflection when thinking about giving this advice of when was the last time, I updated my resume when I wasn't actively looking for, employment. And if you're like most people, you probably don't, but it's really, important, because as you're going through and you're accomplishing a project, or you have a really great, end of year review, that's the time to be putting all of those accolades, all the things that you did accomplish, making sure that, especially with measurable activities, such as, I'm in marketing. So when it comes to, talking about launching a campaign, I want to make sure I'm not just saying that I launched it, that I actually had measurable in terms of met my KPIs, what was my conversion rates, did it lead to ROI at the end of the day? So things like that. So make sure you're doing that in real time as you accomplish stuff. And then the second would be keep it relevant. One faux pas I often see in resumes is that people list out everything they've ever done. Yes, that's wonderful. Experience is great. But really what's more important is what are the roles that you've had that actually relate to what you're working on. So I think Emily did a great job of kind of leading into what I was saying here is it doesn't always have to be something that, a one-to-one for what you're applying for. Having those transferable, those soft skills, what are those, and making sure that they translate. So, if I'm moving from marketing to interior design, I've probably worked with a lot of different agencies, vendors, and things like that. That transfers to working with contractors, to working with clients. So a great way to kind of, make sure that it's keeping relevant and always kind of tailored to that position that you're applying for.
The thing that I wanted to talk about, which I even think seems almost taboo to think about updating your resume while you're currently in your job, because I totally hear that. But then hearing what you said about, the KPIs, you can talk about those like impressions or the engagement rate in way more clarity than you can if you're like, shoot, I got to update my resume and let me go back and pull all this data. So I think that's a good reminder for everyone, no matter what phase of your career you're in, like keep fresh and thinking about that. And then I think that also works for if you're in a career pause, like you can still update a resume thinking about your volunteer skills, or, if you were navigating a medical leave for someone and had to kind of figure out all the nuances of that, project management. So I think no matter what phase you're in, you can really, these are some great tangible steps that you can take to think about your resume. And I love what you also said about, you don't have to include everything, especially as we grow in our careers and resume kind of becomes a little bit longer. Like you can knock off those early positions that aren't really relevant to what you're kind of going after today. I was reading through your notes that you put in the script ahead of this LinkedIn Live, and I was like, oh, these are so good. So thank you. I really think those are some great tips. And I'm sure we might have some more questions about resumes in our Q&A. Kelsey, I wanted to talk to you about, I'm putting you on the, no. Let's talk about advocating for yourself in the workplace, whether it's a promotion, a raise, or a new opportunity. Tell us about some tips that anyone can take.
Yeah. So kind of when I'm considering like wanting a promotion or a raise or any kind of new opportunity within my role or the company, there are 3 things that I really keep in the back of my head to kind of accomplish that. And it's collecting my wins, being mindful of timing, and being prepared to negotiate and follow up. So kind of to dive deeper into those 3, collecting your wins is basically just gathering all that evidence of all the great work you've done, the accomplishments, the contributions, any positive feedback from clients or colleagues. It sets the foundation of being able to ask for these things. So I'm a big fan of organizing my emails into folders, and I always make sure I have one that's dedicated to my wins. Some people use spreadsheets, some people, put it in a Google Doc. Really doesn't matter. It's that way to prepare for a performance review, or when you ask for that raise or promotion. And I think having these details directly showcases the impact you are making on the team and the organization. And also it's a level of care that I don't think maybe most people would put the effort into. So it just kind of shows you're going the extra mile. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing is timing. Timing is an art. I don't know if it can be fully mastered, but it's really important when you're advocating for yourself. So choosing the right moment to kind of discuss goals can affect the outcome. And so I believe when you approach these types of conversations, it should be done honestly and professionally. So performance reviews or post-completion of a big project, like Megan was just saying, these can be ideal opportunities to kind of, open the floor to that discussion with your higher ups. So, make sure you're regularly talking with your manager about your goals, how you can achieve these, and setting those milestone markers. And then negotiating and following up. So as a young woman in corporate America, I've definitely felt, imposter syndrome from time to time. It can be really daunting when you're first starting out to negotiate and advocate for yourself. But something that I've learned early on is not everyone is going to take that leap and put themselves out there. So be brave, do something uncomfortable, and remember that the worst case scenario might just be a no, and that's fine. I prepared to negotiate by asking my colleagues for advice, talking to peers in my network, and honestly, even watching YouTube videos. I'm sure the Mom Project has resources, tons of amazing resources too, but YouTube also has these, videos from people who are going through it themselves. And sometimes that can be really helpful when you're negotiating in your role. So don't forget to follow up. It's so important. I like to say, don't be aggressive, but be professionally persistent. Because if this opportunity is top of mind for you, you want to make sure it's top of mind for, the higher ups you're speaking to. So again, there's kind of no perfect way or art to this. I think just trust your gut and lean on your network for guidance.
I absolutely love the term professionally persistent. And going back to what you said at the beginning about collecting your wins, I think this is also a great exercise for the resumes, like keeping track of your wins. It's just, this all goes hand in hand with whether you're advocating for yourself for a promotion or you're thinking about updating your resume, like collecting those wins. And I feel like I hear this literally all the time and I'm always like, I gotta do that. So another good reminder. But then the other thing that you mentioned about it being daunting is I feel like for me, it's daunting at any level of my career. I think even if you've been in, the workforce for 12 years, it still is intimidating to advocate for yourself. So I think your confidence can inspire me and inspire others watching, that those are really easy ways. And what's the worst that's going to happen?
Exactly.
All you're going to hear is no. Mm-hmm. I always remind myself, I'm like, the worst they can say is no, even when I'm doing something like, calling the doctor. But I think those are really important reminders to think about. And you are your best advocate. No one else is advocating for you like you will advocate for yourself.
Exactly.
And I think once you learn that, and once you figure that out, you're like, no one else is really advocating for you in a way that you'd like if it's not you. Mm-hmm. Okay, Jennifer, I wanted to talk to you about LinkedIn. How crucial has LinkedIn been for your professional journey? And tell us some strategies that you recommend for building a strong LinkedIn profile and network.
Absolutely. Well, LinkedIn has played a critical role in my professional journey. Honestly, it's been a segue into obtaining podcast, panelist, thought leadership pieces. Even some of my job opportunities have come from LinkedIn and the network. My recommendations there for building a strong LinkedIn profile and network include getting really clear on what you're good at, right? So what's your value prop? And then reflecting that on your LinkedIn. So, your LinkedIn, the way I want you to think about this, your profile is essentially today's version of a resume. So it really should mirror that. And beyond just the profile itself, and we all know this by now, right? But networking is absolutely essential. And even right now, I know one of my mentees is actually live and within this audience. So appreciate her joining today. Hopefully she's sitting there smiling when she hears this advice because she's heard it before. But one of the biggest mistakes that I see with networking, I see people trying to, I'll say in air quotes, connect with as many people on LinkedIn as they can without much thought, just to increase the number of followers that's shown there, right? This, for me, my opinion, is a missed opportunity. And oftentimes what you'll see is this gets mistaken for building one's network, when truthfully, meaningful networking involves cultivating that relationship with another person. And the best way to build a network, especially when you're starting out, is start small but smart. So an example of this might be, you see someone post an intriguing thought leadership piece on LinkedIn, or perhaps a panelist was super interesting to you on a WebEx or a LinkedIn Live, and they shared sound advice. Reach out to those people and ask them for a virtual coffee. I know that sometimes it seems daunting, again, especially when you're first starting off in your networking journey, but I am here to let you in on a secret. Most people like to talk about themselves, and most people would say yes to that arrangement if they feel that your ask is genuine. So keep it simple, right? So send a message. Hi, I heard you speak at such and such event. Your thoughts were really insightful. Would you be interested in having a virtual coffee or tea with me sometime? And if they take you up on that, next steps, again, because chances are they will take you up on that, nurture that relationship, right? The more meaningful your network, the higher return you are going to see. Especially in times where you might need to lean on that network for support, a job opportunity, and sometimes it's both.
I love what you said too about making it meaningful, because I think you can, even when you think about, I'm on the marketing team, so we think about influencers, or, would you rather have someone with a really engaged small community, or would you rather have someone with a huge following, but you don't know who these people are?
Right.
And so I think it goes back to that, is just making sure it's super meaningful. And I think those are some really great tangible steps that someone can take to build and nurture those relationships, especially the virtual coffee, because people do love to talk about themselves. I think that's such a great point.
They do.
Making the most of it, because I think when the people have asked me for a virtual coffee, I'm like, that was so nice. I'd love to meet with you. So don't be afraid. I think that's incredibly good advice. And I also really liked your start small but smart. It goes along with professionally persistent. And just a reminder to everybody watching, we do have time for a Q&A session. So put any questions that you may have into the comments. And we'll dive into those soon. The last kind of question we have is, what is the best advice that you've received as a woman in the workforce? And what advice do you have for those who are either currently looking for a new career or looking for that career shift? Jennifer, we'll start with you.
Sure. So the best advice that I've received as a female in the workforce actually came from a previous mentor of mine, who shared with me early on, if you desire something, whether that's career elevation or it's a complete career shift into maybe a new industry, it could be anything in between, go after it. It sounds so simple, but I think a lot of times what we see is women holding back nowadays, right? These are common, I call them trigger words, but you hear imposter syndrome. That's essentially what that is, where they don't feel like they have what it takes, when in reality, I would challenge that they do. And unfortunately, having this mentality can slow career progression. It often can leave women stagnant within their career. You can even see some of this in alarming statistics that exist as it relates to even the applicants in that process. So according to a Harvard Business Review, it's shown that men will apply to roles that they feel they might meet only 60% of the qualifications, where an alarming statistic of women will only apply if they feel they meet all 100. Can you believe that? So the lesson here is, ladies, we just need to believe in ourselves more and go for it. And then as for career advice, I think the best advice that I can offer to everyone in this virtual audience is just to get really clear on who you are. I think for a lot of folks, they tend, especially women, right, the do-it-allers, be everything, I have to, every direction. No. Get really clear and concise. What makes you want to get out of bed in the morning? What excites you? Where do you excel? Once you gain that clarity on who you are, you'll have a much easier time honing in on roles that meet that criteria. And honestly, you'll have a bigger return once you land those roles. So sort of like a puzzle, once you get that match right, it just naturally falls into place.
Oh, go ahead, Shelley.
I was going to go next. So the best advice I've received is to own your voice and advocate for yourself. You know, Kelsey did a great job earlier about talking about advocating for yourself. That was one of the best advices I've received as well. So don't be afraid to speak up, share your ideas, challenge the status quo, and stand firm on your values. With that, confidence is key. You must deeply believe in your abilities and recognize the value of your contributions. So in turn, the best advice I can also offer is to echo that and say, be your own advocate. Pursue opportunities with confidence and don't ever hesitate to negotiate for what you deserve. Advocating for yourself doesn't necessarily mean, it also means, taking charge of your career trajectory. So I would say, if you don't wait for opportunities to come to you and proactively go after them. Additionally, I talked about mentors. So I'd suggest surround yourself with allies and mentors who also support your ambitions. So whether you're looking for a new role, a new project, a leadership position, make your goals clear, advocate for yourself through your hard work and dedication.
That's a common theme we're having, is advocating for yourself. And those are some really great ways, like mentorship and just making sure that you're taking the leap and not being afraid to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Emily, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, the best advice that I think I've received is that failure is how you learn and grow. And this doesn't just have to be with work, it could be with anything in life. But when you make a mistake, just reflect on it, assess the situation, make corrections if needed, and then move on. When you look at, or when you think about like your leaders that you aspire to be, or whether it's particular or whatever it may be, they did not get there from not making mistakes and being perfect all the time. Everybody is going to make mistakes. And so don't worry and dwell on it too much when you do. So I try to keep that mindset. Easier said than done, of course, but try to keep that mindset as you go through, life and your work life. And the advice that I would give is, we've all been the new person on the job. We all know the stress and anxiety that occurs with starting a new role, looking for a new role, whatever that may be. But there's kind of a silver lining with that. One of the good parts about being new in a role is that you have that growth mindset, you have that curiosity mindset, and that's actually a really great thing to keep in mind throughout your career, no matter what stage you're at, because you don't want to be stagnant. You're going to get bored if that's the case. So you want to keep that curiosity, that innovation, and that growth mindset throughout your career, because none of us are ever done learning. Even that person in the C-suite level still has things to learn and ways to grow. So always keep that mindset throughout your career.
Mistakes are key. I mean, I can still think of the mistakes that I made. I know you say don't dwell on them, but I think every mistake is a learning experience. And especially when you're early in your career, I can literally tell you the top 5 mistakes I made. But, they always help you grow and they help you develop. So I think that's really good advice, and one that I think, especially as moms, as we're navigating back to school season and missing deadlines or missing details, there's so many details running through our minds right now with new routines. And, no matter how old your kid is, I think everyone's having big feelings getting adjusted to a new school year. So we're all going to make mistakes and we're juggling a lot, and it's okay. Sarah, how about you?
Well, I would say that one of the most valuable pieces of advice that I've gotten is just making sure that we're building genuine connections and relationships. So, like going back to like what Jennifer was saying, I always try to make it a point to ask people personal questions about themselves and actually get to know them as a person and not just as a coworker. And that's just really important to me. I think that, when you're building these meaningful relationships, that can lead to a million other things, mentorship, collaboration, and just support throughout, your entire career. Also, we all read that book, The Year of Yes, right? That one was a good one. Shonda Rhimes, write it down. I loved that book. We all have our little self-doubt, right? So I think that putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations, saying yes to opportunities, can really help you grow professionally and personally, and build your confidence. As far as someone considering a new career, I would say to leverage the network that you have, gain any insights that you can, look for potential leads, but also remain open to learning a new skill or a certification. Look for a good mentor, and just stay resilient and stay authentic to yourself. I think by focusing on these relationships and stepping out of your comfort zone, you can navigate career changes with confidence and with purpose.
And we talk a lot about networking and the authenticity of it. And I think too, it's like, don't discount the moms you meet at like soccer practice, or, the person you bump into at your workout class, or kind of where, even in your community that's not necessarily in a professional setting. But I think those, especially for those who are looking for a career shift or kind of navigating that career pause, do not discount just genuinely talking to people and building those connections within your community, because you never know where they might lead professionally. Is a good note. And I think the other thing is just stepping out of your comfort zone. It's such a big, we all get so stuck in the routine and like, I don't want to do that, especially for those of us that work remote, like myself. It's so easy to stay in my little bubble. But I think even pushing myself to go to in-person networking events is so helpful, because you just get to meet people, and, you get to meet people in your community. Megan, tell us your advice.
Yeah, so my advice is going to be for the people pleasers in the audience. Early in my career, I had a boss that told me to remove sorry from my vocabulary. I found that I was using it too much. Started an email sorry because I didn't get, I worked in client services. I didn't get to that email within what I thought was an appropriate amount of time, or starting to give feedback and a creative review of, sorry, I think this, or I would do that. And it started to diminish, I think, my confidence or my, expertise on what I was saying. So, just making sure that, it's okay to, stand in conviction. You don't need to say sorry. Certainly there are places where it is 100% needed to acknowledge a mistake, doing that with, respect, but make sure that you're, evaluating how you speak. It's that outward, projection of your own, abilities. So I'd say kind of that was one of the very actionable piece of advice that I got early on in my career. And then for those looking for a career shift, I'm going to double down on what Jen said. I had a previous boss kind of refers to them as magnets. It's not just what attracts you to a role, it's really what keeps you coming back to it day in and day out. So what are those things that are going to make you want to keep coming in and be engaged in your role? And I think those can often, especially early on in a career, might get confusing with culture. So thinking of it, is it really going to be the free lunch or the snack cart or the, happy hour that keeps you coming back to your job? Or is it the opportunities, the ability to see kind of a, room to grow? Is it having a mentor, or is it just moms having flexibility, having an employer that understands that pickup and drop off are at times that are in the workday. And so there might be some flexibility that's needed. So knowing what truly are your magnets is a great way to kind of think about, what you're looking for in that next role.
I love what you said about magnets. I think that's so, like, what a great way to kind of focus in on what you want. There's two things I wanted to talk about. Don't say sorry. The female quotient had a great Instagram yesterday about alternate ways to say sorry, especially in email, like, thanks so much for flagging. I'll fix that mistake. Like, so often we say so sorry, but people make mistakes all the time. So I was going to post it in the comments so that you guys can take a look at it. I do think there are some very easy, tangible ways that we can even just reframe how we're saying sorry in emails.
Yeah.
And then second of all, finding flexibility is so important. And I think flexibility can mean so many things to so many different people, whether that's your hybrid, you have time to leave for, go meet someone at the soccer game. But I think identifying really what flexibility means to you will help you hone in on those right career opportunities. We have a great toolkit with Mother Untitled, which I will also post in the comments, kind of evaluating what flexibility means to you and how you can really narrow in on those magnets. And really find what you're truly looking for. Kelsey, how about you?
Yes. The best advice I've received as a woman in the workforce is kind of echoing what Sarah was saying about authenticity, but I am allowed to be, and we're all allowed to be, empathetic and assertive. I think sometimes those two qualities, especially for women in the workforce, are looked down upon a little bit or seen as weaknesses, but I think younger generations are kind of changing the dynamics of kind of workplace culture. So one aspect of that shift that really resonates with me is just having that ability to, have empathy and connect with our colleagues on a deeper level and fostering that supportive and collaborative environment. I think it helps, lead to more effective teamwork, problem solving, and then that assertiveness it allows us to confidently state our boundaries and express our ideas and advocate for ourselves and others. So I think that balance of the two it makes the workplace more inclusive and dynamic. And I feel like everyone feels more respected and empowered. And then for those looking to make a career shift, I think the best advice I can give is be patient, be kind to yourself. Starting from scratch can be really scary. And even when you put all the work in, setbacks are bound to happen. Don't let this deter you. Obviously, take it into account and kind of evaluate where you're currently at, but adjusting your plans is okay. Something I always remind myself is we're all on our own timelines. Comparison is the thief of joy. So that would be my advice.
Well, and we like to say too that career paths are not linear. Yeah. And so it's so hard when you look on LinkedIn and you see someone your age is doing they are very high up, but it's all a journey and we're all navigating it. And the circumstances that happen with life and with your career path is so nuanced that you cannot compare yourselves to others on this journey, and you are on your own timeline. Yeah. But it's hard not to see that when we're on social media all the time, and comparison is truly the thief of joy, as I share social media links in the so it's the
double-edged sword.
A double-edged sword, yes, it's a pro and a con. But I also think too, what you're talking about being empathetic and assertive. We talk a lot about empathy as one of these soft skills that parents bring to the workforce, and as well as assertiveness. I mean, those are the two key elements that parents and women as leaders really bring to the workforce, and one that we should embrace and champion.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a lot of questions from our audience today, so we are going to dive right in and put some questions up, and I will let you all kind of navigate those answers. So one, this is about cover letters. I'm wondering how important is the cover letter these days? Are recruiters and hiring managers even reading those? Or are they just going into an ATS reader?
So I can take this one if the group is all right with that, because this is my day in and day out. So I can weigh in here. The answer is it is very dependent on like everything else, right? But very dependent on ultimately the material that's put within the cover letter. So just being very honest, especially to help the audience as best as I can. I have the ability, I'm sure most do, that are in the day in the grind with looking at resumes and cover letters to decipher individuals that really put that time and thought into that particular role. I can tell. And I can also tell the opposite, which is that this individual is recycled this cover letter until the end of time. I will still move forward. I will share and look at that resume. Again, personal preference, but here at RF Ideas, We look at totality. So do I know going into looking at that resume at first glance, did this person recycle this cover letter? I do. I'm still going to go that extra step, but I will forewarn you, not every talent acquisition team is going to do that. So if it is a role, going back to what I shared about really honing in and getting specific on roles that might be a slam dunk for you, or roles that you look at that role and you think, wow, I really want this job bad. And this company looks great. I went on their Glassdoor. I'm really excited. If you have that excitement off the bat, I would highly recommend, it is worth that ROI tenfold to just take some extra time and really make sure that that cover letter speaks to that role, what you've done, and how you can make a difference in that seat, right? And that is where you're going to see the most bang for your buck, because that right there is going to showcase what can you do if you got in this role today. How might you serve us in this role? How might you play a part overall in the company? So I'm not opposed to cover letters. I wouldn't discourage anyone in the virtual audience from putting forth a cover letter. Just personal experience for me that I tend to see more often than not the recycled version. And I will share that I do put more attention to ones that I can tell have spent an extra even 5-10 minutes on their particular cover letter, and it seems genuine. I will spend more time there. So if you're going to take the time to even put that out, I would say really take the time to think about, if you want that job, take an extra 5-10 minutes and make sure that that cover letter reflects your contributions and how it ties to that specific role, not just a generic cover letter that will do you no good.
That's great, tangible advice, the plight of a cover letter. But I think what you're saying is, if you're excited, take those 5 minutes, because I think your excitement will also shine through.
It does. And I'll tell you right now, you absolutely can tell. People will say, well, how can you tell? You can tell the ones that are genuine, just like when you're having a conversation, right?
Yes.
And you're just, you pick up on that. You can tell someone that's genuine and they're just not going through the motions and putting in a cover letter. So it's an extra piece of paper. That does no one any good. So there are ways to tell. I know there's automation coming down the pipeline. I know AI is really hot right now, and that's a whole different topic for probably a whole different discussion. But I will share with you, regardless of AI and what else is out there, if you really want something and you think that could be a great opportunity, like anything, you have to put in some effort, right? It's not just going to be handed to you. So if you really want that job, make sure that if that's your first impression, you spend a little more time and you do what you think is necessary. It will give you better chances of being seen.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Totally agree. Those are great answers. Thank you. A good question on mentorship. How do you find a mentor, and how do you ask someone to be your mentor?
I answered the question, so I don't mind taking this one.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I would suggest whether it's in your current work environment or if you're leveraging LinkedIn, I mentioned finding someone who has experience and insights that match your own aspirations is really critical to have a good relationship. So I would take the time to learn more about the individuals that you think might align with that. And whether it's, looking at their LinkedIn profile or having a virtual coffee with them, take some time to get to know the individual to see if you feel that you can connect with them and have a good match. So how do you go about asking for someone to be a mentor? As simple as that. I would just, I mentioned advocating for yourself. So have that confidence to go, hey, I've looked at your LinkedIn, or we've had some conversations, and these are my career goals, and I really think you'd be a good match for me. Are you willing to take me on as your mentor?
And I think too, something I wanted to add to that is check within your field too, because there might also be networking groups within your field that also offer, number one, just opportunities to meet people, or number two, like, more formalized mentorship opportunities or programs. So depending on what field you're in, I'd also kind of dive into those groups on LinkedIn and see if there's any kind of networking that you can do to strike up those relationships as well. And Shelly's advice, I think too, is perfect, to just ask them, hey, will you be my mentor? And don't be afraid. As someone, as we mentioned and talked about earlier today, As women, our confidence can very easily be translated as arrogance. Any advice on how to confidently advocate for yourself and being taken seriously? Who? Anyone?
That's a really good question.
It's a really good question. Yeah. I guess. Oh, go ahead.
So you can also comment, but I was just going to say, I mean, my philosophy is always kill them with kindness. Approach whatever situation. You can be confident and kind at the same time. So if I would just approach it that way, and just don't be nervous about it. With this whole conversation, we've just been talking about go for it, so just go for it in a kind way. Just kind of prep for whatever conversation you're trying to have to advocate for yourself, like Kelsey was mentioning. Do that preparation, and I think you'll end up coming across the way that you're wanting to come across instead of arrogance.
Yeah, and I was going to add, we've read a couple of books as part of this ERG group, and one of them actually talked about this, like how women being assertive and having confidence, like it's almost like I don't love seeing that word against confidence. Like arrogance is not one and the same as confident, and I think confidence stems from your inward, right? Like knowing your stuff, having that confidence to present, being prepared. There's a lot of things that get rolled up into confidence that I wouldn't say come across as arrogant. And delivering a great pitch or presentation, I would say remove arrogance as a byproduct of confidence is really my advice on that confidence can come. And if it's authentic, I'd say probably arrogance comes in place when it's not authentically confident and you're trying to kind of mask that, or come from, you don't quite know what really your own self at that point, if that makes any sense. So I would say, don't think the two are the same.
I completely agree with that, Megan. Like I was thinking, as a person, especially I work with customers all day, every day. I'm very confident in what I do, but customers like that because, I am supposed to be, a subject matter expert on what I'm talking about. So if I don't come across as confident, then they probably are not going to go with our company or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So I agree. Like you can't, I guess some people could tangle confidence with arrogance, but if you are truly confident and you know what you're talking about, I don't think it comes across as arrogance. It comes across as confidence, as it should.
Yeah.
And I like too what we talked about being empathetic and assertive. Those are also two things that you can think about when coming across confidently. And arrogance is subjective. So they think you're arrogant. You're also really confident. It's subjective. I mean, it's so subjective. And also you could just hit someone on a bad day and they could think you're arrogant. And then the next day they could think you're really confident. So I think if you have confidence in yourself and are, confident in the message that you are speaking about, then I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
This is a good question. Would you take a pay cut to change your area of expertise? Or, a career shift is what I'm kind of assuming. Like just to, would you take something, would you take a pay cut to change your area of expertise to a career shift?
I feel like if you have the means to be able to take that pay cut, I think that everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. I'm the breadwinner of our family, so I really can't take a pay cut. If I was not, and there was something else I would rather do, and I wanted to learn a new skill or whatever it may be, and not be an expert in that field, then yeah, I think that I would take a pay cut to gain new knowledge and do something that I'm super passionate about.
I would add on to what Sarah just shared and say that, so agree completely, right? This is an individual journey and there's a lot of intricacies that go along with that, right? Pay is something that you need to survive. So you're going to have to think long and hard about that and what your home life situation is and can you make that work? But most importantly, I think you would need to sit down and do sort of what I was describing previously. It's almost like that personal inventory. So when I look at this question for whoever put this forth in the audience, I think, what is the end game there? Is this someone who has done that inventory and they've said, wow, I've realized that I am just not passionate about this field. And I think that's fair, right? I think we get thrown into this world where at 18, you have to figure out which college you're going to. And then you have to automatically say, okay, now based on this is where I need to go. And the path, you shared it perfectly, Elizabeth, but the path isn't linear. And there's a lot of times that grown adults, 30s, 40s, 50s, they wake up one day and go, I don't want to do this. And I think that is totally fair. And so if this is one of those moments where you say, geez, because I've worked my way up this ladder and I'm here, if I realistically start over, I'm going to be starting, with a delta. But you have to then decide, one, can you swing it financially, right? But then two, ultimately, is that going to lead to happiness? Is that going to lead to what I want and what I crave every day? And honestly, that ladder is huge for me. Like that ladder piece of, is that going to fulfill me? If that answer is yes, I sure hope that person has a support system and can swing it, because at that point, my answer is go for it.
I completely agree. I was going to say your happiness is also very, very important. And so you need to think about time. Your time is also money. So if you're getting time back to spend with your family or to spend with, the things that you're passionate about doing, that's also something to take into consideration when looking at, the full pie chart of what the pay cut benefits, flexibility. I mean, there's so many things that come into play when you're choosing a new job that you really have to think of pay as one factor in a slew of many. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. How do you know when your resume states what it needs to state for success, when everyone who looks at it makes different suggestions to fix it? That's a great question.
I can chime in since I had the resume just to start. I'm sure there's probably little comments everyone can make, but again, I'd say resumes are subjective. It depends on maybe who you're asking to review it. So maybe take that step back, and if you do have somebody in your network that is in a similar position for which you're applying to, that might be a really great way to get a baseline of, does this resume, match? Do you kind of see the qualifications in this? So, asking an engineer to review a marketing resume might be very different. So just having that kind of lens of who's looking at it, who's giving that feedback might be really helpful. Not to say that having somebody step away and see if, does this make sense? Does it stand out? But I'd say making sure that you're, who you're asking for is somebody that can give that credible advice on the resume.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that depending on who you have read your resume, they might offer a fix that isn't something that you authentically would say yourself, right? So you want to have your resume also reflect what you would provide in an interview if you got to that point, right? So I don't want something on my resume that when I organically talk about it during an interview, they're like, that didn't sound like the resume. So you want to make sure that your resume and the suggestions that are being given to you are authentic to you, and that you feel comfortable that if I put that on my resume, I can speak great to that, and that does reflect how I would organically say that in a conversation.
Last thing I would share here, because I get this a lot, and I'll tell you right now, it's very overwhelming for individuals right now, because they are constantly, I feel like this question is textbook of what I receive, which is, I had a personal, I paid someone to look it over and they changed it to a completely different version and format and the content. It is incredibly overwhelming, and I would not recommend it go through a million and one hands. I think Shelley really said that eloquently, which is, you really need to have an understanding. It needs to be authentic to you. I would say reviewing that resume, does it tell that story, right? If I were to receive that resume, does it show a story of what this individual might be applying for, right? Or does it read too general? That goes back to the problematic piece of, we're trying to be it all and do it all. And sometimes when you're too broad, that's problematic as well. But for this question, I would say limit the number of touches or passes, or, if some people are, spending resources on this, I would say try to limit that, because you can really, you can redo a resume until the end of time, and someone else is gonna, it's like CPAs, it's like someone else is gonna have a different opinion, and then it's gonna throw you off. So Shelley had a great point, and so did Megan when they gave those tips and tricks. I would just recommend at some point, cut it off and make sure it just, at the end of the day, it feels like you, right? When you read through that, it feels like who you are and what you've done.
It's a good
Those
point.
are really, really great answers. And I love the one about don't let everybody look at it.
Mhm.
Stop it at some point. And for this particular audience member, we will have a masterclass on resumes with Ashley Cash, September 26th, I believe, but just stay tuned on our LinkedIn. But we'll really dive into some nuances of resumes. So you definitely want to catch that one too if you have more specific resume questions. And we just have one more. Megan, can you tell us the name of the book that addressed arrogance and confidence?
Unapologetically Ambitious by Shelley Archibald. Did I say Archibald? I don't know if I said her name.
Archambault.
Yeah, Archibald. Yeah. Unapologetically Ambitious.
Okay, this is
We've all got it because it was one of our reads. So here's the read.
How many books do you guys read in a year?
We do quarterly book reviews, and we'll try to do more if we can. But again, we're ambitious. See, this was one of our first reads. He's actually a call out to Shelley Archibald. It sits on our board over at Roper, which is our parent company.
That's amazing. You all have shared some really great books. So I think this is some content for TMP down the line, is sharing all these amazing reads, because I think it's overwhelming too when you're like, what do I read? Where do I start? I'm gonna come back and I'll tap you guys because I want to get this list because it's amazing. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This hour truly flew by, and you all shared so many incredible tips and tricks and real life strategies to guide you on your career path, wherever you may be in that journey. Again, connect with everyone here on LinkedIn. Ladies, it was amazing to talk to you today. Thank you again for sharing your wisdom with us. And to everyone watching, thank you again for joining, and we will see you at the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, thank you.
Bye.